Now, to discuss this a bit further, we're being joined by political commentator James Morris, all the way from Los Angeles. Mr. Morris, as always, thanks for joining us here on Press TV. Now, as we just reported, this is not the first time an Israeli diplomat has been accused of spying by Moscow. What can Israel be getting out of this?
Oh, thank you for having me back on Press TV again. It's a pleasure. I just seen this in the news as well, and I think you have to look at this historically, going back to Israel's involvement with Georgia and the war that Georgia initiated against South Ossetia. Then you had Israeli influence there, with the former defense minister of Georgia being an Israeli, and one of the ministers in Georgia, who was Jewish as well, boasting that the Israelis had trained the Georgian military to wipe out an entire Russian military unit. So, I think you have Israeli espionage going back involving that situation, but also with regard to what Russia had signed a deal with Syria, wanting to put bases back in the ports, the Russian ports. It was an Israeli newspaper article that had come out, and it was the Syrian ports of Tartus and Latakia. So I think the Israelis, are concerned about Russian support of Syria, and of course Syria supports the resistance to Israel, the Hezbollah, and Israel is deeply concerned about that. And no surprise that espionage is going on against Russia. I mean, we see the Israelis conduct espionage against the United States as well, and that barely goes reported in our media. Russia was rightful to expel that Russian, his name was Colonel Vadim Liederman, and I wouldn't trust the Israelis either if I was a Russian, especially when they helped initiate the war that Georgia did against South Ossetia.
Right, Mr. Morris,
associated with Russia.
Just sorry to interrupt you there. This incident occurred during a visit to Moscow by Israeli Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Does this signify anything, or was this just a mere coincidence?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think that the neocons in America now have designs on Syria and Iran. I mean, you see these what's happening in Syria now with the protests. I'm not saying that I believe in dictatorship or anything like that, but I think the neocons through the National Endowment for Democracy have been involved with this, perhaps, in terms of rabble-rousing in Syria. And what they want to do is they want to create strife there and get Obama to intervene in Syria like he did in Libya, because they were involved with that too, pushing for that. And through their operatives or the advocates in the government, like John McCain and other senators, Lindsey Graham and Joe Lieberman. And so what is happening, I just think the neocon Zionist plan for the region is being put into effect here, and Israel knows that Russia is supportive of Syria, and they're trying to get any intelligence they can by doing this kind of espionage. But the only thing I can say is be ready for more war, because I think if you go to America-hijack.com, my blog, you can see additional articles about this. I think this is all part of the Israel lobby, AIPAC, pushing for confrontation with Iran. President Obama speaking before AIPAC in the coming days. His national security advisor, Tom Donilon, who replaced General James Jones, who was against war with Iran, was actually talking to the Washington Institute for Near East Affairs, which is actually it's the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, which is an AIPAC spin-off think tank, about stronger action against Iran. He was just doing that recently. So I think this is all a plan to get an eventual war going for Israel against Iran and Syria, and the region really has to be on guard about this, and that's why I think this espionage is tied into. They know Russia has been supportive of Syria, and it will veto any move to go into Syria like America did with NATO and Libya, and we just have to watch out for that.
All right, some very interesting points you make there, but I'm afraid we have run out of time. That was political commentator James Morris speaking to us from Los Angeles. Mr. Morris, as always, many thanks for joining us here on Press TV.